Welcome to the Ball and Chain podcast. I am Mox Born again. I have with me, as always, it's my angel.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Yep.
Is this thing on?
I'm here.
What's going on, everybody? We have a pretty big show. We got 2 reviews.
Always have a pretty big show lately, it seems like.
Well, we got 2 really good games to talk. Well, before I go that far, we've got 2 games to talk about today. 2 reviews, full reviews, plenty of time put into each of them, one of which we both finished from start to finish. So no complaining there, comment section. It's enough out of you. But yeah, so we are a video game mostly podcast. We talk about other things too, like we're going to talk about entertainment stuff. We're going to talk about the Fear the Walking Dead episode that aired last weekend or this past weekend. We're going to skip the Westworld episode because we missed episodes. Because last week I had to go to the emergency room, so I didn't get to watch the last 2 weeks ago, and then I did not get around to watching this past week's.
Right, yeah. You had pneumonia, been laid up.
So that's, so pneumonia kind of kicked my butt, although it was good for gaming. I got to play a crap load of games.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, well, if we got enough time, we'll talk about the Fortnite PUBG thing, but I doubt we'll have time to get to that. We'll probably cover that stuff next week, and then also next week is E3, so we'll be talking about that stuff. Like, the podcast is going to be like dead center of E3. So
yeah, because I was going to say, we've got a couple reviews this week that we wouldn't have next week, so we can kind of spread some of this stuff out.
Right. So, you're going to be playing HQ in here just a minute. Kind of. Good luck with that.
Right.
If you win $300,000, that would be fantastic.
It would be fantastic.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
What would you do with $300,000?
Pay off everything.
Okay. Well, okay. What would you do with the other $250,000?
Not 250. I'd pay off our house.
Oh, okay.
Like legitimately everything.
Okay. You're talking about like everything,
everything,
from start to finish, everything. Okay. Well, what would you do with let's say $100,000? What would you do with $100,000 then?
Give some to some people I know. I'd go ahead and say, screw this, not letting me have another dog.
No,
and I would get a dog.
No.
We could afford a trainer and a dog walker.
So why would you need a dog then?
Because I want one.
You have someone else would be like it would be like manning the dog, or essentially.
Well, no, I can man it.
You can woman it.
Whoa, man.
Whoa, man. Whoa, bro. All right, well, let's go ahed and get into it. What do you want? Do you want to talk about Detroit first, or you want to talk about State of Decay first?
Whichever you want to talk about. Probably State of Decay. I feel like we'll have more to. I mean, we got a lot to talk about both, but I feel like we'll end on a happier note talking about
spoilers. Speaking of spoilers, we will not be spoiling anything in Detroit Become Human. So
we'll try not to.
We will not. There will be no spoilers in this review.
How the heck are we? Okay, we'll get there.
We will talk. We'll talk about the game, about the mechanics, and how it plays, and kind of like vaguely touch on things. But we're not going to be like, oh my god, the main character dies in the first 30 seconds, like yours did during the demo. Didn't the demo? Didn't your guy jump off the edge, or was that my guy?
No, I think somebody's did in the demo, but I think mine did in real game too.
Did it?
Yeah.
No,
it didn't.
I
failed.
No, you failed
that's right.
worse
I failed
than
hardcore.
That. You failed worse than that.
That's right.
You failed worse than that. Anyway, so we will not be spoiling it for those of you that have not played it or would like to play it through multiple times or whatever. So we'll go ahead and start with State of Decay 2. This is so full disclosure. I put in just under 30 hours into this game.
That's a lot of time.
Last week.
That's a lot of time.
It is a lot of time. I got...
Considering you played a whole other video game on top of it.
Right.
Holy moly.
There's a lot of games.
You played a lot of games.
Right. I didn't know if I wanted to admit that out loud, but I did.
Yeah, you did, and now I know.
So full disclosure. So we played about 30 hours, just under 30 hours. I got pretty far into the game. So the premise. Ooh, that's weird. So the whole premise of the game is it's like this. You described it as a
Sims.
Sims.
Sims Zombie Apocalypse Edition.
Right. So you described it as a Sims Sims like zombie horror survival game, which I think is a really good description of it, because that's really what you're doing. You're running around collecting material, trying to build up your little colony faction thing. There's some customization to it to where you can say, okay, well, I want this type. I want
add mods.
Right. I want this type of not house, but like there's different things you can put inside the house. Like there's like the infirmary, there's beds, there's garden.
You can add
workshops and things like that. Right. There's a whole long list of things that you can put in there. So it's not like personalized. It's not personalized, customizable. Like you can't paint the walls.
I can pick this couch.
Right. You can't quite go that far, but you can kind of customize it to where what type of faction do you want to be, and what do you want to specialize in, or what's the needs of your colony. Really is kind of what it boils down to. It's set in the zombie apocalypse, so there's zombies roaming all over the place, and there is like these boss zombies. Like there's a couple different ones. So like there's
blood plague zombies.
Blood plague zombies. Those are the ones that give you the blood plague, which you have like so long to get yourself cured before you die, essentially.
Right.
There's the juggernauts, which are the huge zombies that
I haven't even seen those.
Right. They're the huge zombies that they have one hit kills. They tear you apart, and it's all kinds of bad. There's the
regular old zombies.
Regular zombies. There's the belcher ones that have really big guts and they like blow up and they
like a bloater.
A bloater. And then there's these like really
screamers,
which those
call more zombies.
Having multiples of those in one room at a time is a pain in the butt, because when they scream, your character, you lose control of your character and he covers his ears, and then they don't scream at the same time. One screams and then the next one and then the next one, and it's just and by the time the third one's done, the first one's ready to scream again.
And there's more zombies coming, and you're getting dead.
Right. And then there's these really weird ones. They're like crawly ones. Like they crawl really fast, and I think they're called lurkers, maybe. I don't know. So anyway, there's a wide variety of these zombies. The weapons are, there's a wide variety of weapons. There's weapon mods and things like that you can kind of customize your weapon to your liking. And you basically go out, scavenge materials, and save survivors. There's random quests and things like that you can go pick up. There's
people radio in and say, "Hey, is anybody out there? I need help."
Right, and you can choose to go save them, or you can choose not to, and depending on what you do affects the colony, and there's a morale and stuff like that based on how and what you're doing. So it's pretty in depth, and the variation. I find the variation of quests it's kind of slim pickings. Like it's usually go here and clear out these zombies, or go here and find they call them rucksacks, which are the big backpacks of materials, or as you get later on the game, they get a little bit more complex. Like one of them was we had to go get this, go with this person who joins your group temporarily to get a rucksack, who then you get ambushed by another group of people, and then zombies show up, and somehow, and it feels like it was, I want to say that it was all staged or scripted, because it's kind of weird that something like this would happen. So we go to this one place to look for rucksacks, and then all of a sudden there's another group of humans that come in. We kill those people, but all the gunfire attracts zombies around us, and the guy that you're with ends up getting plague heart. So the quest turns into blood plague. So the quest turns into you need to get the rucksack, him back to their hideout, and then get him the blood plague cure. So I feel like as the game progresses, the the quests get a little bit different, a little bit harder, and that might just been my playthrough. I mean, I don't know what kind of. I mean, you played pretty far into it as far as like the intro, and then like building up your colony.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I got that far, but then again, I feel like I did more playing multiplayer.
I jumped in with you for a brief minute, then jumped out.
Yeah, I played more with Ducky and Ruben.
So there's multiplayer. How does that work?
Basically, you can choose to go into somebody's colony.
Mm-hmm.
They helped because I was the least experienced in the game and the least far into the game. So they basically came in and helped me out. They're like, hey, you can do whatever you know. Do you want to go scavenge for stuff? Do you want to do, what to do? So, any items that they picked up. So, looting is a little bit different when you're playing with multiple people. Each person has their own color, and the game, so that somebody doesn't go into a building and take everything, the game designates which containers who gets which containers. So like all of mine would be white, and in the building, and when you go into a building, it tells you there's these possible materials here. There are 3 containers. You've opened 0 of 3 or 1 of 3. I think if it's clear or something, if you've cleared it, I forget what else it tells you up there. But
if there's zombies or whatever, zombie infestation, stuff like that.
So it might say 0 of 3, and there's 3 white containers. I can see that there's like a couple blue containers blinking and a couple orange containers. So everybody has their own containers, and the loot is spread out that way. The loot that they pick, the other people in your game pick up, obviously they can drop it and give it to you, or they can keep it, and when they go back to your home and they open up the, what do they call it, the supply?
Yeah, the supply. It's their supply in there.
Right, it becomes their supply, so they get to keep all that stuff, whatever that's theirs. Now, that's for the regular loot. Now, when you go and collect rucksacks, that does not go into your supply. It goes into the other area. It
goes into like your colony's like main supply.
Right.
Or whatever.
There's like a big supply area, and then the one over by the desk. And I can't remember the different terms for them because it's been a little bit since I played, and I apologize for that. But any rucksacks that they collect and deposit there stay with your colony.
Right.
So they were helping out with that. Now, if they were to wear the rucksack and switch back into their game, they can deposit it into their colony because it's something that they are wearing. So it stays with them. So
what did you think of the multiplayer? Was it fun? I mean,
it is. I mean, it's nice to have some help, definitely, with some of these things because something else you can talk about is you run into hordes. So it is beneficial. Now it does tether you together. So if I ran off on my own and like you said, there's a quest where maybe you have to go to this house and talk to these people, and then maybe they take you down to this truck to get this rucksack. I can't just let the other 2 people like hang out over there doing their own thing and scavenging. They have to stay somewhat near me. If they don't, it keeps them.
Does it bring them back? Does it bring them to you, or does it stop you from moving forward?
I think it brings them to me.
Okay.
I'm not. Again, I haven't played as the person going into the other.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've only had people come into my turn, and I would hear them from time to time. So, oh no, they're too far. I'm tethered to you. So I'm not sure 100% how that works. But like you said, overall, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of story. I did feel it's fun for a little while, just like The Sims. It's like, oh yeah, I got a job, and look at my pretty house, and I added this to my house, and I'm doing this to my job now.
And I got
right,
kids.
and it's exciting for a little bit, but then like, it becomes repetitive.
Right.
And maybe it's something that you play for a while, and you do all the things, and then you leave, and you're like, you know what, I really miss playing that, and you go back. I mean, we did that with WoW a few times,
right.
like. You play through the first 20, and it's first 20 levels are a lot of grinding, and you get through there, and it's a lot of fun, and then you put it down for a while because you just have other stuff to do. and you come back to it like, oh yeah, I kind of missed this, you know. So I wonder if it may be kind of a similar thing with us. Like it's fun for a
Possibly.
little while, it's not, maybe not like long
So
term.
so from a single player, I played primarily a single player by myself. Just because I wanted to see how it stood up, really wanted to kind of compare it to Sea of Thieves, because the two games are very similar in the fact that there's, there's like a homeland, and then you got some exploration, you got quests and stuff like that, and resource management and stuff like that. So I really kind of wanted to see how it would compare to Sea of Thieves set in the zombie apocalypse. So my experience with the game was a little less exciting. There was a couple. There was a couple instances where it was really it felt fun, and I got enjoyment out of it. For instance, like the you can collect vehicles or whatever to help you get around, and that's a really big part. I came across this truck that had a 4-door truck, huge bed. It's got a huge trunk, so you can store lots of things in it. And if you got a group of people that you need to take with you, whether it's you're picking them up or you're starting a following or whatever, you can carry an extra person or two in the truck, which is great. So at any rate, like that was like my main mode of transportation. And I came back from doing a run, and my character was practically dead. Park the truck, and all of a sudden, the guy around me says, "Oh my God, there's a juggernaut." I'm like, "Oh no, this is not good." And sure enough, he's like right on top of us. So I managed to get into my colony and save myself. But all my people in my colony for some reason decided to go out of the colony and attack this thing. Which it proceeded to murder several of them, and
Once they're dead, they're dead.
Once they're dead, they're dead, and then so your morale goes down, and then like I'm trying to bandage myself up or whatever, and I see my truck go flying in the air, and then come down, and then just this huge explosion. This is at night, so it lights up the sky. It sets fire to the ambulance and the couple other cars that I have down there. At that end of my base, and I'm like, wow, that sets me back pretty far. Like the loss of colony members was one thing, but now you're killing my mode of transportation, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Because I literally just moved my colony to this like Bridge Lake area, so there's 2 exits or whatever. But the reason why I did that is because I've been, at the first colony I was at, I was doing a ton of driving. I literally would take a full tank of gas to get me to a place and then back. And I was just running out of gas like crazy. So like I moved, inland so I could get access to more places or whatever. And I think that's kind of how they push you forward in the story or in the actual game is, okay, now that you've completed all these quests on this part of the island, you need to, there's more quests over here, and there's a couple places where you can colonize. If you're going to do that, you probably should move and, rather than wasting gas.
Right.
But so there was a couple moments like that where it's like, okay, I took down the juggernaut. That felt really good, but I lost all those people. Like, man, I got to start over. So it really had that story, that really good story of heartbreak, but moving on and rebuilding and stuff like that. But the problem that I have with the game is the bugs.
There's a lot.
There are a ton. So twofold. First off, the graphics. The graphics are very last gen.
Yeah, I would say 360 at best.
360 at best. And like I understand that it's this huge open world. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. But like it's jaggy. The controls are very unforgiving. But the one thing that set me off, and you can attest to this, that actually stopped. Like I haven't picked the game up since one of the bugs happened, and it happened frequently. Is the ladders will just become inaccessible. So on my new base, I've got it's basically like a bridge that kind of goes over over a river essentially, and there's an upstairs, there's an upper level that you can get to through 2 different ladders, and up there's like you can observe, and there's got like sight lines and things like that, and I've got 2 different spaces. So that's where I put I put beds up there, and I also put a garden up there. So, and the thing is, people from time to time will go up there or whatever, and you can interact with them and stuff like that. But a couple times that I went up there, my character wouldn't grab onto the ladder on the way down, so I would end up dropping down, breaking my character's leg, and now I can't use that character because he's got a busted leg, and he's got I got to switch to somebody else so he can heal essentially.
Right.
And yeah, I could make a med kit or whatever and fix it or whatever. But the thing is, when you're talking about resources and keeping your resources high, like using that stuff to fix a glitch is not the answer. Fix the glitch. Like, fix the ladder. If you can't get ladders to work, don't have ladders in your damn game.
Right.
And I know if I experienced that multiple times in my 30 hours of playing it, how did they not run into that during their playtesting? Like, obviously, I don't know. It was very frustrating.
Right.
And the couple times that it happened, like shortly thereafter that experience with the Juggernaut, it was, I just come back from a run. I have 5 people in my party. The 2 that I came back with are obviously ready to take a break. I have a doctor, which I leave the doctor there because the doctor is very intelligent and fixes a lot of things and all that stuff. And the other 2, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to switch to these guys, and I'm going to go out with them next, right? So, get them all set up, and I go upstairs to kind of see what's going on, and turn around and try to grab on the ladder, don't grab the ladder, fall down, break the guy's leg, and all of a sudden, the only 2 guys, the guy that I was going to go out with is now inaccessible because he's got a busted leg.
Right.
So
beyond that, there was just like silly glitches, like you leave a door open, you come back to your house, and the door still appears to be open, but the game thinks it's closed and tells you to open it. Just difficulty with like getting into a camera angle and trying to like drop stuff off or
the organization of your stuff is terrible. Like your personal inventory. Like, you can carry, like, I like the fact that certain backpacks have certain sizes, which is great, but I should be able to move those things around.
Well, the other thing that I had trouble with was, in most games, you have a gun and you have ammo for the gun.
Right.
And when you have that ammo, it shows it as available ammo, and it's not taking up, like, an inventory slot.
Right.
This one, however, any bullet, so say you have a gun with a magazine of, like, 10, but you have
11 bullets.
32. So say you have 20 bullets.
Yeah.
It'll have the 10 bullets that are in the gun, and
right.
the remaining 10 will be taking up an inventory slot.
Right.
Which to me just is ridiculous.
Right.
I understand. I guess I do understand that whatever you're not having in your gun in real life would have to be in a pocket or in a backpack or something like that. I mean, that is realistic.
But to me that seems broken. You could either carry this power saw, or you can carry this bullet, but you can't carry both.
True.
Right.
Because bullets are a bullet is small, it shouldn't have to take up much space.
Right.
So I get that too.
Yeah. But
because there was space, but then there was also weight, I think.
Right. Exactly.
Because your person would become fatigued and use more
lose stamina faster
if you had heavier items, even if your backpack wasn't totally full.
The other thing that really made me angry, and it's gonna sound like I'm complaining about this game, and I really am, because it's
it's gonna sound like I'm doing it.
I really am, because it's that bad. You also have your pockets, right? And your pockets are supposed to be the easy accessible things,
right? So
but you
can't quick heal.
But you can't assign things to your pockets, right?
Yes, you can.
I couldn't get.
When you go into your inventory, you have your pocket slots, and you just drop something into your pocket slot.
It wouldn't let me do that. It would let me.
Didn't have a problem with it.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I would select something, and the game would decide, okay, this is going in your pocket. Okay, this is not going. This, for a while there, I was running around with bullets in my pockets when I had frag grenades in my backpack. So if I wanted to throw a frag grenade, I had to go to my inventory, select it, and then press use, and I couldn't even aim, so I'm just like, ugh. So the controls in the game are god awful. The other glitch that I ran into is there's these things called plague hearts. Basically, they're like these huge, like gooey, gooey looking thing that just has a bunch of zombies around it. If you deal damage to it, it attracts more zombies, and eventually it dies, and then all the zombies go away. So this is like a huge part of the game.
It makes the remaining plague hearts stronger.
Right, but so this is a huge part of the game, where so much so that your party members in your colony they're saying, well, we need to really clear out the infestations, but we need to take care of these plague hearts first. So we go out and clear those out. So you always want to take somebody with you and make sure they're armed to the teeth, because these things are like super powerful.
I only did the first one.
Oh my god! So the one that the glitch that I'm talking about is the plague heart was in this it was in like this gas station, and in the gas station there was like this back closet door, and it was in the closet first of all. So I had to go, you couldn't see it while you from inside the station. You actually had to go into the closet to shoot it. So, my guy and I, we clear out the main bad guys or whatever, go in and start shooting, and of course it summons, these, or calls for help or whatever it does, and sure enough we're completely surrounded or whatever. And I happen to, and from there, basically what I usually do is I stop shooting the plague heart, turn, focus, and clear out the zombies. Otherwise, you get overrun, especially in a freaking closet like that. So, clear out the zombies, and I'm looking around. I'm like, "Where's my guy? Where'd he go?" And I'm like, "Okay, this is strange. My character's about dead." I decide to stop shooting the plague heart because I don't have support. A, and B, where did my guy go? There's only 5 of us left in my guy. So like I get back in my truck, I'm like, well, I gotta go back and heal before I can go back out, and I'll grab somebody else and we'll go finish the plague heart off. So I'm driving down the road, and I pass this human running along the road. I'm like, that's my guy. He literally left me. The NPC left me in the middle of a mission to run back to the colony. What the frick? Like, come on. And the thing, and I read online, there's a couple of people that had the similar issue, only they had it 10 times worse, where their character would just disappear, like their partner would disappear completely, and they couldn't relieve them to pick up somebody else. So they just had to continue playing the game by themselves with one character. I'm like, yeah, that would make me quit, like, for sure. Like, the falling off the ladder and breaking, that's like, I'll quit that. But, that happening, breaking the game from there on out for yourself, that's like throwing the controller, taking the game back type of thing. So ultimately, spending $60 on this game is not worth it. Do not spend $60 on this game. If you're interested in it, if you're a zombie fan, I would say go the Game Pass route and rent it through that. So it's $10 a month for the Game Pass, and you get it through the Game Pass. You can just like Sea of Thieves. You can literally see, there's a little bit more content than Sea of Thieves.
Yeah,
doesn't look nearly as good. The game is more flushed out as far as what there's things to do, and like more depth to the game. There's not as much story. I mean, Sea of Thieves have 0 story, but this has slightly more than that. It started out so good, though. I thought for sure the game was gonna be awesome, because like the intro, like the beginning part, selecting your characters. The characters are randomized. Mm-hmm. Like their names and stuff. Their stories are different.
They have lots of different stats.
Right.
So like you can pick up like gardening and
chemistry,
painting and
planting.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of different things like that. So there's a huge depth, and maybe they'll fix the game going on, but don't spend $60 for sure. Spend 10, play it for a month, and then put it back. Play something else. I would play this over Sea of Thieves for sure, because Sea of Thieves just didn't have any content whatsoever.
Eli was asking to play it the other day.
Oh, well. Well, I mean, if you have the Game Pass, then you technically have Sea of Thieves, so you can play with that too. You can try that out. So I wouldn't purchase it. I would stay away from it until they fix the problems. So sorry to bust your bubble. State of Decay 2. But anyway. All right. Become Human. Detroit. No
PlayStation
spoilers.
4 game.
PS4 game, looks gorgeous.
It is beautiful.
Wow. It's amazing. So this is Quantum Dream or Quantic Dream?
Quantic, yep.
Yep.
Who did Heavy Rain, which we really liked.
Yep. They also did what is it?
Beyond Good and Evil?
Not Beyond Good and Evil, Beyond Two Souls.
Beyond Two Souls, that's right. And I feel like we played it.
We did. I know we did. I remember the case.
I just don't remember. Oh, I remember now.
Mm-hmm.
That one had something to do with like her shadow self, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's right.
So, Quantic Dream. So Beyond Two Souls was it was a little more actiony. I think. I don't think there was a lot of the quick
I don't
time.
remember a whole lot about it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Become Human is more akin to Heavy Rain, from what I remember. Only with a lot more decisions.
Tons.
Like with Heavy Rain, it was you could choose A, B, or C, and the only thing that would change would be what characters were alive at the end, and that would determine the outcome. There was probably like a dozen,
somewhere between 6 to 12 different endings. I want to say
this. Holy cow! There's like things that happen at the beginning
that affect something at the very end.
At the very end, that change the story.
Yeah, you'll kind of see as you're playing. I guess let's
start
over.
Start at the top.
If you go back a few episodes, you'll see us playing the demo,
which is the first part of the game.
First level, right? So basically, we'll kind of go just like a general broad overview. Detroit, Become Human. It is set in 2032, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
So not that far in the future. And androids have become like totally integrated in our society. So people use androids for like house cleaning, for pretty much all labor.
Grocery shopping, taking care of elderly,
taking care of the kids. There's like street cleaner. Pretty
construction
much
worker,
any kind of
any labor job
is done by an android.
Entry level,
point. Right?
Most of them were super. Like the ones that we saw, like were super by
janitorial,
security.
But this particular game is following predominantly 3 androids. You've got Connor, who is detective. He's the one you see in the demo there. It's the first level. He's a detective,
deviant hunter,
right? And as you find, this doesn't really give anything away. Deviants are androids who have kind of gone off their path. They're showing some emotion, and they're not following their programming,
right.
Basically.
They're breaking the laws of robotics.
Yeah.
Super breaking the laws of robotics.
So you've got him. You've got Mark.
Oh, go ahead.
Marcus is next,
Marcus?
or Kara?
Marcus.
Anyway, Marcus, and when you first meet him, he is a caregiver of an older gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Kara, who you meet, and her storyline. She's in charge of the household and taking care of this young girl, Alice. Now there are some trigger warnings on some of this stuff. There's a lot of heavy, and again, this isn't really going into spoilers, but there's a lot of heavy themes going on in this.
A lot of prejudice towards androids.
There's a lot of prejudice towards androids. You get a lot of like abuse type situations, whether it's domestic abuse or abuse against androids, and whether or not they're human. Kind of what makes a human is kind of going along the lines of this. What makes you a sentient being?
Right.
Are they alive creatures? There's a lot of like political line, a lot of political things going on in this game. But essentially, you're right. It goes back to Heavy Rain, where you have all these pretty much everything boils down to QuickTime events. Any action scene is, press triangle, square, mash R, hold R2, and
alternate R2 left L2,
like for like crawling or
Right.
things like that.
It's very cinematic.
It is. It can be a little tricky at times. I'm not always great with some of the QuickTime events. I have a hard time with those, and then that can fare not so well for your character. Again, I think we were both playing though under the expert level.
Mm-hmm.
So you have two different options when you start the game. One is
Actually,
like
I think
there's two.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. There's two. I'm thinking of something else.
One is it says that it's easier. It's focusing more along the storylines. And we both played under the more expert level, which it says will focus on some decisions, and you're more likely to lose your characters. So,
Right.
Essentially, there's a lot of different ways that your characters can die.
Right.
Just being aware of that.
Which we saw at the end, not to go into specifics, but I lost one of my 3 characters, and you did not. You got.
I did.
Well, right, but I mean, you got to play. There was probably about an hour's worth of game that you got to play that I either didn't have access to, or it played out as a movie between 2 different characters.
Right.
Similar conversation,
But you had no input.
But I had no input, and it was 2 different characters that weren't in your story. One of them was, but the other one was being played. The character that you were playing as, my character had died, so there was another character in the story that stepped up, and it basically was a conversation between the 2 of them. And I wasn't, and basically I was just sitting there just watching.
Right.
So yeah, characters can die.
They can.
You can lose out on some information.
Right. Definitely would go back and play it again. One of the things I really enjoyed seeing is each chapter focuses primarily especially in the beginning. Each chapter is focusing on one of the androids at a time. And it shows you after you finish a chapter, it shows you a flow chart. So it'll have the chapter start here, and then it will show kind of almost looks like it reminds me of like a family tree.
Yeah. And this is super eye opening.
Yeah. So and a lot of times you may see some branching, and then it all comes back to one. Mm-hmm. Like, this was how this story was going to end. Yeah, maybe I only investigated 3 of the objects in this room when I could have investigated more of them. And the thing that really does for you, though, is a lot of times you'll investigate something, or maybe you'll be in the middle of a conversation, and something will happen in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see path unlocked. So basically what that means is you get through that chapter, and maybe it seems like there wasn't a whole lot of variation, but you may play a chapter, 3 chapters from now, play it out, and then when you go to look at your flow chart, you'll see like this little lock symbol. Mm-hmm. And you basically had access to that line because of something. It'll say, maybe you found a gun, and it says, so-and-so did this. Gun found in this episode.
Right. So the only way you have access to that line is because you found that gun. If you did not find the gun, you would not have access to that.
Right.
And you wouldn't know that you didn't have.
No.
The game would just continue on. There was, and that's not in every case though. In some cases, you do know that there are other options, and you just don't have access to them.
Right. It might be like a dialogue where there's 4 options, and the top option shows a lock.
Right, that means you missed. You
missed an opportunity.
You didn't miss something. You just missed an opportunity because of something in the past that
either a choice that you didn't take, or
an
object that you didn't find, or right. Some of the conversations, I'll say maybe a conversation you have between 2 characters. There may be like a list of 5 questions you can ask, but the game only allows you to choose 2. Right. Now you don't know that. You're talking, you choose this one first, then you choose this one, and then the conversation's over, and you never got to go back and ask those other 3 questions.
Right. Sometimes that's frustrating.
It is. It can be.
But that's just the part. I mean, that's just part of the experience. If the one character doesn't want to talk anymore, I'm assuming that's what they're trying to portray is, okay, we've talked enough. I'm done with this. Have a great day.
Right. And I think if you had access, if you were able to have all of the conversation, have enough time to study every single thing in every single room, then everything would be unlocked, and
everybody's game would be the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it definitely helps lead to that variation.
Yeah, it forces that variation. So what do you think, without getting into specifics, what do you think of the choices, the morale choices that you make, or the moral choices that you are presented with? Did you kind of stay your true course, or did you play like a?
I typically tend to go good as far if I have like an option between like good and evil type things. I tend to play as a good character. I have a hard time with the other choices. Now there's a lot of room. I mean, there is a lot of room for
gray.
Yeah. Especially, in one of the storylines, it seems there's some things you could do that would really help you out if you went maybe the not so moral route. But then you kind of have this little, I'll say, birdie on your shoulder saying, "Oh, let's go. Let's do this the right way." And you're like, "Oh, but things would be easier maybe if I went this route." But I really want this relationship to be fostered, so maybe I'll listen to this relationship or do what this person would want me to do.
Go away, bird.
Right. Yeah, so I think you do kind of find yourself questioning, especially, this isn't really giving anything away, but the storylines do kind of start to merge, which I would hope would be the case if you're playing a game like this. I mean, that's kind of a given, I would think, but and I find those lines getting blurred more and more because maybe I was playing a particular character a certain way up until a certain point, and then it starts working again,
right,
against me in another way.
I mean, the one example for sure is that I didn't get experience, but you experienced one where you were playing both characters in the conversation.
Yeah.
That now I didn't get to do that because of the way my story had played out, but to me that seems a little backwards, because you're like, okay, especially if you want both characters to be a certain way, and this confrontation's like only one person can win. Well, not win, but only one person's gonna go this way, and the other person can go this way. I kind of
had to choose what I wanted the general overall thing to happen, and it may contradict how originally I was playing one of the characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely,
it makes you think, and the thing,
and I think with that particular instance, there was a scene with one of those characters before, where I may have been playing this character a different way, but the companion again I was with, I wanted to please, and so you're left with this moral choice, and it gets really tricky. It's like, okay, well, if I was really this android, and this is what I believe, this is what I would do, but I am not the android. Like,
and I found myself making choices because I feel a certain way.
Right.
But then when you mix in, like, the characters in this story are really strong. Like the interactions between the two, one in particular that I wanted to kind of foster the relationship between the two, and it got to a point where I didn't have an option to continue that relationship. Like the game just wouldn't let me, because I missed something or didn't do something earlier on in the game, and it forced me down this path where I had to make a decision, A or B, and both of those decisions went against what I initially had started doing, and when I made that decision, I just remember, like, audibly I was angry, like, and the thing is, like, this type of game is fantastic, like, waiting,
it gets you to think in a different way,
right? And the other thing that's a lot of fun too is they give you the percentages on the flow chart of your choices at the end of each level. it gives you the choices that everybody in the game has made that's connected to the internet, and you can kind of see where you fall at. Like, were you with it? Were you with the majority, or the majority of people chose this. It shows you what you chose and where where the
or
rest
sometimes again, like you didn't necessarily have a choice, or maybe you I suck at this one particular thing and ended up in a confrontation that I didn't necessarily want to have. And yeah, like, so it's not necessarily always choice based. Sometimes you suck at QuickTime events.
Right. And I think and that kind of goes back, one of the things I think they could have improved the game on is a game like this that with the QuickTime events that they have. I mean, they even the conversations at times are QuickTime events, because you've got a timer on when you can reply. We kind of talked about this in the car the other day, how people were complaining online that I don't get a chance to make a decision. Everything's timed or whatever. And I feel like if you had a chance to sit there and have you're having a conversation and you wait 2 minutes before you respond, like, it kind of breaks the reality.
Right.
So having that that 20-second window to respond to a person talking to you, that's more realistic.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think that's
I think so too.
Choice.
And the most of the decisions where your character is alone, where they're trying to make a decision for themselves, some of those don't have those. Like, you can actually stop and think about it because your character's stopping and thinking about it, but the conversations are timed. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying,
some of the scenarios on a whole are timed too.
Right. And one of the things that I think they could really improve on going forward is showing you these icons beforehand.
Oh, right. Well, and some of this is also because we were playing on like the harder difficulty level, I think. But
right. No,
yeah,
you won't have
that. It utilizes obviously like your triangle, square, circle, and X buttons, but then also left and right triggers.
Yep, thumbsticks.
It utilized like pulling and pushing your controller, so the gyroscope.
Yep, gyroscope. Yep.
It also had sometimes like you might have to pour somebody a cup of tea, so it would have you like tilt the controller.
Yep.
And then also one thing I really loved is you can choose to, like, this is just like an optional thing, is there's a scene I think where he tells you to go do something, and like you could play chess or read a book. I played the piano, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has that little touch screen thing right there.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I tapped it, it was him playing a note, and it was amazing. But yeah, but there were different different ways they utilize that touchpad too.
You swipe up, swipe down.
I think a painting thing.
Yep. So there's a ton of different like controller inputs.
Right.
And some of them look very, very similar. Like, the icons look very, very similar. For instance, when you shake the controller down or pull the thumbstick down or drag your thumb across the touchpad, all those look very similar. Granted, we know they're different, but when you're in a very
fast-paced battle or a chase scene or something like that, it's very quick to be like, "Oh crap! I jumped my controller instead of doing my thumbstick," or
you ran into issues early on because you were laying down playing, so your controller was naturally at its side already, so tilting it wasn't really working because the controller didn't register that it was tipped, or what did that it's tipped, whatever.
Right.
But having some type of interaction, and I think they kind of solved the problem with, because I didn't have the times that I did fail one of the actions. There was usually a follow-up action that was a different button press that was still in the moment type of thing. So, like, if you were in a fight scene and you needed to shake the controller to the left and I accidentally pushed the thumbstick to the left, my character would get punched in the face, but he would
dodge the next one.
There wasn't like any, like, it didn't seem like there was any like instant fails and you had to start the whole sequence over again.
Right. Yeah, I'd say in most of them I may have missed a couple and was still able to come back.
So in that sense,
there were some I missed overall.
And I think that's one thing I don't. If I remember correctly, I think Heavy Rain suffered from that drastic. I think there was a difference where there was some. You didn't start the whole thing over again, but if you failed this, that's the story, and you don't get to make any other adjustments, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like this was more prominent. It was like, oh, I failed that one, now I'm gonna have to do, oh wait, no, he's still going, I'm still going, okay, I'm good, and then you complete the thing. So don't get frustrated with that. Don't get, you're going to read, if you read online reviews, especially on Metacritic, there's a bunch of hate for the QuickTime events, but to be honest with you,
I enjoy them.
I think they use them perfect in this game. I don't think there's any other way that I'd want this game to be played out.
And I suck at them, but I still enjoy. It makes you. It stresses you out. It gets your heart going. But that's how your character would feel in these moments.
And
you hold your breath. I mean,
right. And some of them are are immersive. Like crawling. Like the one, for instance, sometime you're on the ground crawling, and you're
using the R2 and L2.
Yep, and you're just pulling yourself along, just using your arms or whatever. So it's very, it's very immersive in that sense.
The painting with the touchpad. I mean, it does. I feel like they do a good job of matching. I mean, obviously throwing a punch and hitting X or triangle or whatever.
Right.
But I do feel like a lot of them
these controllers
do feel
really
like
well.
they match.
It wasn't like press X, press triangle, press square, press X, press triangle, press square. It wasn't like just that. They
dodge to the right. I swipe my controller to the right. My character dodges to the right.
Right. If there was an option to use something other than the actual buttons, face buttons, they used it. So, and I felt like that's good. I enjoyed that. So, story wise, I felt like it was a really strong story. I felt connected to 2 of the 3 characters.
Really?
Not
all 3?
Not all 3.
Huh.
Yeah, not all 3.
That's interesting. I don't think we discussed that.
Yeah, I'll just say it. I really didn't care too much for Marcus.
Really?
Yeah, I started out caring for Marcus, like I like the whole taking care of the old man.
Right.
Spoiler, kind of, but that you learn that in the first 30 seconds. But after the story kind of took off, I was just like, oh, I'm not really
digging him.
No, I Kara's story is probably it's tough between Kara's story and Connor's story, and part of me thinks that it's the supporting characters. That's exactly it, because, and I won't go into it, but because of who Marcus is and what Marcus supports or whatever, he doesn't have. Leave it at that. The supporting characters of those other 2. It's
just not as emotional for you.
Exactly. And Connor, I mean, having Connor being a deviant hunter, that's just an awesome job. And I'm so mad that
android hunting
androids being supervised by other androids. I'm so mad that I didn't get to do the one interaction with Connor that you got to do. With the 3 other androids in the scene or whatever, and I did not get to do that interaction because I chose to do something different.
Right.
And that's kind of the interesting thing is, we talked about earlier how a conversation you might be having a conversation with somebody and you might have 5 things to pick from, but you only get to ask 2 of them. There are some things in this game where you have 5 different actions in the game, and you could only do 2. You only have time to do 2.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So you can't do it all. So it's not just the verbal and the conversational pieces, but it's also the actions that you take within the game. So this game is fantastic. Like, I wouldn't normally say buy a $60 single player game because it's not worth your time. Like, we finished a game in probably about 10 hours. And that seems about right. I mean, you played a little bit longer than I did because you had that extra chapter or whatever, so maybe you played a little bit longer. But it seems like you couldn't stretch this very much further than that because
it felt like a good stopping point.
Yeah, it did. It felt like it was a good stopping point.
As much as I didn't want it to end because again, you grow. It's like when you're reading a good book. Like, you want to find out what happens, but you don't want it to end because you're enjoying it.
I wish they would make this like this type of series, or not series, this type of universe would be fantastic as episodic content. Like if I could pay them $15 a month and they gave me 4 episodes, 1 episode a week.
Right. Maybe focusing on just another Android happening while
Yep.
all this is, yeah.
And you can even take it to the 9th degree, take it to the Walking Dead level and say, okay, this is Detroit. What's happening in LA? What's happening in Texas? What's happening in Canada?
Right. Because I mean the whole gist of the story is that more and more androids are becoming deviant.
Right. And you hear from the President of the United States in this whole thing. So clearly it's not just Detroit.
Well, I mean, you would hear from the president even if it was just in a city. I mean, if it was if this was a huge thing going on, you'd hear from you hear from the president during one city, major bad things happening.
Yeah, but I feel like, I mean, to me, I felt like what she was talking about. Oops, spoiler alert, crap.
What the president was talking about.
What the president was talking about, it seemed more.
I wouldn't say that's a spoiler alert.
It seemed more of like a global thing to me.
And I don't know.
I don't know.
I felt like it was more there, isolated, but it may not be.
Who knows?
But yeah, I think they could easily come out with another story line happening with another android. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to intermix with the ones we've seen.
Right.
But yeah, just
and I don't think they needed and
they could utilize on this they utilize there's TVs and you kind of hear the news to find out what is the public thinking about something.
Oh, that would be so sweet if that carried over from game to game.
Yeah, you could definitely use that to carry in.
There's a cash cow right there. Seriously, it's I would put my credit card on file and be like, okay, charge me $15 every month. I want more of this.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. Not only the graphics, but the color. I'll say there's a time when it's snowing. You're in Detroit. There's a time where it's snowing and there's just lights and colors and it's just
the graphic
pretty.
Design and it's really good. The
the
camera
angles, kind of thing. Yeah,
I was just thinking that the camera angles, cinematography. They have a very film-esque type of feel to them. It's not like you're, here's character 1, character 2, but you're in a conversation. So here's the character talking. Here's another character. Here's cameras all the way back in the corner, and they're in the background, and in the foreground there's the plan.
You said it was the very first chapter, I think, with Kara, and she's a housekeeper, and you said it was rather dramatic on her cleaning.
Yeah, it was she's picking up the spaghetti plate and taking it back to the kitchen, and she's picking up the trash, and it's just boom, sharp angle, drastic angle. She's picking up the trash can. She's going outside. She's hanging up the clothes.
Right. It was kind of funny, and again, that's not giving anything away. That's the very first chapter with Kara.
It's fun though, and it's exciting. I want more of it. I'm kind of curious, and I have heard there's a couple of podcasts that I follow online that say the how-to videos the behind the scenes videos in the extras tab are worth watching.
And that's something else. So each option that you kind of unlock on your flow chart gives you points. I think by the end of the game I had 30,000 points,
mm-hmm.
20,000 points, something like that, some enormous amount. So I haven't used them. And there are a lot of extras. I haven't figured out. There's an extras skins or something like that, all the different characters. And I don't know what you use those for. Then there's art, videos, like you said, behind the scenes. I think some of the preview and demo videos are on there.
Mm-hmm.
I think some to cutscenes, the soundtrack. You can unlock certain songs from the soundtrack. But there's a lot of unlockable items on the extras too.
Yep.
Not to mention the little robot lady that talks to you on the menu.
She's creepy at times.
It can be a little creepy. The one night we played kind of late at night, and we come back the next day, and she's like, "Oh, I see. Oh, you were playing late last night," and we're like,
"Whoa,
okay, yeah, we were." Apparently.
Next day, she's like, "I see you drinking that beer over there. That's not healthy." We
don't have the PlayStation Eye. Well, I don't think that's even a thing anymore. But we don't have that attached, so hopefully she's not over there.
Can you imagine if you did have because the PlayStation Eye, there is one for the VR thing or whatever, or the Move is what it was called. if they could measure your heart rate and stuff like, she's like, oh, you seem a little tense right now. Maybe
God.
you shouldn't be playing this.
Yeah, that'd be
Seek
creepy.
medical attention. Like,
Yeah, it was kind of creepy enough as it is.
your oxygen level's low, Joe. You should probably go to the emergency room.
Right.
Like, whoa.
Yeah,
Creepy.
it was
So, yeah.
interesting. But yeah, it takes itself very serious, and it's one of the very first things when you turn it on and you start to play the game. You know, she's like, "This is, you're gonna get to make some decisions, and this is you're deciding our life."
Right.
And it's like, oh,
Whoa. Hello.
okay.
Yeah. Fair warning, one of the other things that you'll read online is a lot of backlash about the company Quantic Dream. Don't read into it. This is a great game. Play the game. It doesn't matter where it came from. Rent it if you don't feel comfortable supporting those types of people or whatever rumors are out there. None of it's confirmed. So, but at any rate, like, support the game, play the game. It's a fantastic game.
Yeah, it's an experience, I would say.
Yeah, but if you're looking for that game to show friends and family what the PlayStation's capable of, like graphically and just all around. Yeah, thank you. This is one of those games, like, for sure. Like, you can sit down and hand a controller to somebody, and you can have no skill whatsoever in video games, and I think you could play this game perfectly fine.
I wish we could just pull up one of the like trees being blank and just to show you like how many different slots there are on these trees.
But yeah, definitely.
Because they haven't even confirmed how many endings there necessarily are. No, I don't think. I think there's a lot of different because again, you've got the three characters,
and the supporting characters too.
So you have kind of their endings, and I think you can have kind of like, at least in my opinion, again, I haven't read them all, but it seems like you can have like kind of a good or bad for each. Mm-hmm. How you get there varies.
I think that's the biggest thing is the journey is way different that's the one thing that will be different from person to person. The ending cinematic might be similar, might not be the same characters, but a lot of the conversation is the same.
Right.
So,
although our endings, I will say, we tried to play similar character types, I would say. Not
purposely.
Not,
I think
right.
we naturally played those characters the similar way. Because we we would play at the same time. And
right, I would try to have you away from the TV, and I would play, and then you would come, and I would watch the chapters,
and say, "Oh, that's what I picked,"
and then let you get ahead, and then you would watch me.
Right.
So, but our story deviated quite a bit at the end.
Yeah, like the last third of the game, probably the last quarter of the game is probably where the departure really happened.
Yeah.
And like I said, you had scenes and things that I didn't have, and I had some scenes that you didn't have because of those hard choices that had to be made towards the end. So I would purchase it again. We bought it, and we don't purchase a lot of video games. No. But I feel like this is definitely worth at least $60.
Don't read the endings.
Yeah,
just play through once organically.
Yeah.
And then if you want to read the endings and try to like go to an individual chapter to try to like, I support doing that if you want, like, but I think you need to at least play it once to see what your natural ending is.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Because there are plenty of guides just that, say if you want this and if you want the best ending for all characters, do this, or if you want this particular ending, you need to kind of have these elements in play.
Right.
So there are kind of guides on that. Again, no guide will particularly give you a set number of endings because there is a wide variation between character look. Again, I don't know how there are drastic differences in the endings, but I don't know how many drastically different endings there are.
Right.
There's minor differences, definitely.
And I don't think it's necessarily about the ending, though. I think it's more about the journey. I really do.
Yeah.
Like, the conversations that you have, the relationships that you cultivate. I think that's really... Like, the endings are cool and they're very cinematic, but at the end of the day, I feel like the journey was what I enjoyed the most. So, but, yeah, I think you're right. Definitely play through it without guides or anything like that. First round, I'm probably gonna play through it at least one more time without a guide or anything like that, just so I can play it the exact opposite and see what happens, and then I'm gonna if we get around to it, play it a third time and see what kind of options there are and see those play out. So
yeah,
again, that's or the other thing you do is YouTube it. So
and that's the thing is you can go back and play those.
Specific
scenes.
chapters.
Yeah. And again, I don't know how that then affects the chapters going forward. If you have to go through and replay.
Yeah, because that would almost like splinter reality.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. But it would be interesting to go through and see, okay, well, now I know that I made this option here. I remember that these options were available and I didn't take them. So what if I do take them? What will happen? Yeah.
So, all right, guys, I think we're going to skip Fear recap this week. I mean, we're already at an hour and 10 minutes. So we next week is the mid-season finale for Fear.
Yeah.
So we'll probably just do a recap, and I kind of want to change. I was talking with Angel about this. I kind of want to change the way we're doing these recaps, and it's kind of sad that it's going to happen, and then we're not going to have any shows to watch and talk about. But I think what I would like to do is I would like to have more of a discussion. Like, we're going to do some of the recaps just to kind of set up the conversation, but I feel like we should have. I want to have more of an open dialogue about like what we think the characters are thinking, what we think is happening next. You know, one of the biggest things. Where's Madison? Like, what you think is happening to her? You know, and see how that conversation unfolds. You know, I think the Madison story is a huge one because very early on, it's like, oh well, Madison's dead, and
you kind of assume that, right? And then you start to see what actually occurred. You're like, well, maybe,
right? Exactly. She might not be dead. So, what do you think? You know, how does that perspective change over time? And that's kind of what I want to do going forward with these recaps, rather than just reiterating what we saw on screen.
Right. And because it just takes so much time, especially with some of these big convoluted shows that
like Westworld.
Right. But yeah, it does take so much time to go through and explain them. And honestly, if you're watching, you've probably seen the show. Like if you care enough to watch us recap it,
right.
You're probably watching the show and you know what happened. You don't need us to tell you.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's what we're going to do going forward. So hopefully you will tune in for the conversation, and then also you go ahead and tune in and be a part of the conversation. Whether that's on Twitch, whether it's on Xbox Live, or we also have Facebook. The other thing I want to try and do, and this is no promises, but I want to try and be able to take phone calls. So that's something that I would like to do as well. So with these, types of shows and things like that, where there's a lot of dialogue and things to be had and topics, I want to be able to take calls in that way. So
people can also go on Facebook or Twitch or one of those and
chat. Oh yeah, absolutely. Chat. That's what I said. If you're on Facebook chat or Twitch or even Xbox, you can add to the conversation there. Granted, it takes about 30 seconds for you to see what we say. There's a little bit of delay, but we can still work it in there as well. So that's going to be stage 1. Stage 2 is going to be trying to get the call-in thing. So should be fun. I'm kind of excited about it, and it's kind of happening at almost a perfect time where we're going to be out of shows to talk about, and I guess it'll be time to kind of test it or whatever and get it up and running. So, all right, well that's it. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before you head out?
I think so.
So don't buy State of Decay 2. Definitely buy Detroit Become Human.
It's a game that you could almost buy the PS4 for.
Yeah. We have two games for it right now. We have Drake and we have Detroit. Oh, I played Pixel Junk Monsters 2 on the Switch.
What?
Mm-hmm. We didn't purchase it. They got a demo. They have a demo.
What?
Yeah, they have a demo. It's fantastic.
And you did not tell me this.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I completely forgot. No, I told you.
No.
Yeah, because I said, oh no, I told you I played Zelda. Yeah. I have to get back into that game. holy smokes, missing out for sure. Anyway, so we'll be back next Wednesday. We'll wrap up the Fear Walking Dead mid-season finale. We'll probably catch up on Westworld because we'll have 3 episodes to kind of chat about that we'll go over. Yeah, we're definitely not recapping all those. That's where the discussion comes in. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about pixel junk, monsters. I definitely want to talk about the Fortnite PUBG thing. That's something that's really big. So, all right. Make sure you head over to our YouTube page, youtube.com/72DPI online. Get subscribed. Leave us a comment if you like the show. We got a whole bunch of other podcasts and shows and streams and things like that on there with video games and movies and comics and Magic the Gathering and all sorts of good stuff on there. Fortnite streams and all that good stuff. You can watch us live on twitch.tv/72DPI online every Wednesday. And we usually start about 8, 9 o'clock after the kids go to bed. Yeah. So, all right, guys, have a great night, and we will see you guys next week.
Good night.